would have failed. But the important thing to note is that the failures have occurred within the contract period. So the contract period can be up to 2 or 3 times more expensive than the actual roadway itself. The thinking is that at the completion of the project, there will be weighing areas at strategic locations.
Welcome back everyone to another video. So in today's video you're gonna see the Prime Minister tour, some different sections in St. Thomas that is a part of the road improvement project, while he was on his way to the Bound Brook Urban Center groundbreaking ceremony. For the persons who haven't seen that video, you can check it out via the link in the comment section. And the sections that he stopped to check out is this one, the first one in Pomfret, the second one is the breakaway that happened in Roselle, and the third one is just driving along Martha River, that's heading back towards Winchester and Stokesall, going back far east.
Good morning, everyone. And my apologies for the very hot sun. Last year. Big man. Bigger man. Oh God. Come James, you wanted to talk to me for 2 minutes. Sorry.
Oh, go on, brother.
Moving the bad material that we encounter below base, going down to about 700 millimeters right now, and this is the top of the subgrade. So just for your information, if the embankment is fine, but we found that there are some materials that have been contaminated due to simultaneous works happening between waterline works and so on, so it might have contaminated the base and is not in such a good condition, which caused the failure. So we're removing all of this. It's proposed that in our first assessment, we came up with like 1.6 kilometers, which we're promising to do. And China Harbour is here to execute all of it. I'll allow Chris Henry from China Harbour to give you the more details.
Okay.
All right, so following on from what Mrs. Russ was saying, we would have picked up most of these defects in our previous routine inspections. They would have presented as cracks previously, but subsequent to burial, they opened up and became what we saw here. So the instructions were given to China Harbour's construction team to repair all of these. But the issue was we were on a rigorous timeline in tranche 3, that's from Morant Bay to Portland. So the construction team, especially the urban team, they weren't able to be diverted. So we committed to this Pomfret section, C4 as the represented, and small areas in feeder budget. So that's where we are in the process.
So when I was listening to explanations, the note was made that some of the materials used would have been below standard, even though the quarry from which it came was certified. Explain how that could happen, that a certified quarry, you could have material that is substandard.
Well, what may happen is that the vein of material that we would have...
So you use a technical term, vein, so explain to the public, so that there's a section.
A section of
Yes.
the quarry.
So you go through and you do random sampling in the quarry.
Routine sampling.
Random routine sampling. And you will say, all right, we did this section and the material here is up to grade. We did that section, the material is up to grade. But not all material in the certified quarry would be up to grade. And therefore, there is always this residual risk that you could take material that is not up to grade, which is why you do the road tests themselves.
Right. And we do those routine.
And your road tests showed up that there was some material failure. But from your suggestions, from your report, the material failure wasn't all about the material itself, but the mixing of other materials as a result of the laying of pipes. So in other words, dirt may have got mixed in with the marl, and when water gets into it, the dirt would be totally eroded, and maybe some of them are leaving spaces which, when driven on and compressed, would crack.
Mr. Prime Minister, we could have stayed home.
So the public needs to understand what has happened. The other issue that I think the public should also appreciate is that this is a massive project. I don't think we have ever done a project like this. It's a very complicated project. It's complicated because it is not a greenfield project. And greenfield projects are simple. You don't have to have issues with dealing with the public using the infrastructure while you're building. You can determine where you're going to build. You have greater latitude. So you can look at areas and say, you know what, I wouldn't build here because of the level of protection and reinforcement, and therefore I can choose my alignment. When you're building on an existing alignment, you have no choice but to build on the alignment established. Now, from day one, we know that this is not the best alignment, because even the road that was here before suffered the same fate. The water table here is very high. It's very in proximity to the sea.
And the swamp.
And the swamp. So you're going to have issues with the road. Now, from a climate change perspective, we've always said we have to move our roads inland. Given the nature of what was here before, the communities that existed along the commerce that exists in the area, we took a strategic decision that as much as we can go inland, we would, which we have done. As much as we can change the alignments we have, and what we can't, we would build on and reinforce. So I wish to assure the public that yes, we are disappointed that some of sections of the road would have failed. But the important thing to note is that the failures have occurred within the contract period. So the contract period has not ended. So so this is even outside of the defect liabilities. This is in the contract period. So this road is still under contract. The contractor check as an obligation to deliver the road to a particular standard. Now, when the contract is finished and the road is handed over, you still have what is called the defects liability period of 2 years. So the public is totally protected. Of course, there is the immediate inconvenience of having to do the reworks, but you're going to have this on projects like this. And I would say to the public, even other projects that we're going to do, which involve working on existing alignments, these problems are going to occur again. But the important thing is that we have the systems in place. That's the message I want to get to the public today. This is not the construction of infrastructure of the past. No. This is a new way of ensuring that the infrastructure and investment is protected. Systems are in place. And as I stand here as Prime Minister, as the Minister with responsibility, we ensure this, and Minister Morgan is tasked with being on it almost every day to make sure that it is corrected. As I turn and look at the work that they are doing, not only are they removing the bad material, I noticed that they have a geotextile layer, which is to protect the water coming up into the material. So they are taking the necessary precautions, and the work is being done to repair any failure in the road.
Absolutely.
Prime Minister Jamila from TVG.
You want to catch me down the road when we go down the road?
Right now, I'm going to be sure. In order to prevent something like this from happening again, the road being paved, what kind of quality assurance is being done on a step-by-step basis to ensure that when the marl is laid, somebody comes and checks? When something else happens, somebody else comes and checks to ensure that the entire road is not, seen a situation like this where inconveniencing motorists one more time.
So I will answer you, but I'm going to allow Baden Downer, the Deputy Executive Personnel in charge of the NWA, to explain the quality control processes that are in place?
Morning, Prime Minister. There is quality control management system in place presently and through the entire project construction. The material is tested from the quarry, and all material that comes as part of the permanent works has to be tested and proved. You also have what we call construction processes that has to be checked as well, and that is ongoing. But like every project, we're talking about 141 kilometers. You can have and will have situations, but we have a system in place, both contractually as well as foolproof. So when it occurs, it is picked up and the correction is being done. So this is what you have here. It's less than 1% of the roadway that has been picked up, and we are doing the correction. And as Prime Minister said earlier, it has been picked up during the construction phase. So the contract itself makes allowance for these things. What you have is a contamination of the good quality material with some of the bad material that is nearby. Construction do have these things that happens, notwithstanding the quality management. And part of the quality assurance is to pick it up and to have it corrected, and that's what we're doing. So we continue to improve on the quality management, learn from any kind of situation that is developed, and we move on. That is pretty much it.
I just want to reinforce the point. Make excuses for poor performance,
No.
poor quality work. And ultimately, doing it once is the most ideal situation. So the investment in quality control is to ensure that we measure twice and cut once. That is what quality control is about. On this project, I am certain that there is a high level of quality control. And as Varden has pointed out, we certify, we test the materials that comes from the various quarries. We test the road for compaction. I know the NWA has equipment that tests the asphalt that is laid, and constantly the contractors are held to account. But even with the best systems, you will pick up some of these failures. The real test of the system is that it actually picks up the failures and corrects them. That's the real test of the system. Clearly, we don't want failures. Clearly, we don't want rework. But were it to happen, the public is assured that it will be corrected.
Right. And the clay is really what it is. That we need to, it should not have been in there when they would have excavated and put in the pipeline. This is one of the reasons why we have to put the dam as part of the whole structure itself of the pavement. So with the clay, we have to remove it because the clay itself, as Prime Minister said earlier, about why it's being created and cause it to settle too much. And that's one of the reasons. So we have to remove this material and replace it with material that doesn't have this percentage of clay. Let's come back to it.
But it's not, I mean, I can understand the concept, but we just have to correct it.
The consultant just explain what exactly is happening and what they're doing. And like when they do it, they're undergoing everything. You have the knowledge, but go ahead.
I'm the technical manager on this project from Yallah's Bridge to Port Antonio. So in this location, good morning again everybody. My name is Dion.
Good afternoon.
I hope everybody's with me now. So we're here at Roselle to look at this section of roadway. My name, however, is Dion Sampson Russell. I'm technical manager from SJE Consultants. We represent the government and their interest in this project. The project spans from Yallah's Bridge to Port Antonio. We have a full team of resident engineers and supervisors who manage on behalf of the government, do the inspection and do quality control for the project. In this occasion, however, we are looking at a segment of the roadway in Roselle that had failed after the passing of Hurricane Beryl. This segment was completed. It had no issues prior to, but because there was no protection from high tides and continuous sea impact, it failed during that rain event or storm event. However, with the commitment of the team and China Harbour, we are repairing and fully replacing this section of roadway. This section is 68 meters complete and it will be reconstructed with a new rubber stone wall, rubber masonry wall to protect the roadway and all the existing infrastructure. So at this point, the contractors already started to clear the debris, remove the sections of collapsed wall, and have started excavating. This wall will be 5 meters high, deep, if you're going from road level. And then we will have at least 1.5 meters of this wall below the ground, so that we have a good foundation of protection. However, this component of the project does not include any revetment work or seeding.
Not as a result of the construction of the road, not as a result of the contractor or any works that was done. It was a failure due to a weather event. So this section of the road was impacted by storm surges and water coming over onto the road. Now, there was an existing wall in place. So when we were building the road, there was no need to interfere with the existing wall that was in place. But the hurricane damaged the wall. In fact, it totally destroyed the wall and came in onto the road. So this is not a defect of the contractor. This is something now that the government will have to pursue as supplementary work, meaning we will have to have an additional budget because of the hurricane to put in a seawall. The seawall is not the final or even the most effective defense. You may have to do other revetment works and probably other forms of protection, which is the real solution to this problem is to realign the road, to move the road from the coast. Now, we have taken a decision in the construction of our new infrastructure that as much as possible we're going to move our roads inland and change the alignments away from the sea or waterways. Now that has to be done over the long term. This is not something that we can do today or tomorrow as we go to reconstruct. So as I'm standing here, I'm saying to Jamaica that this beautiful project, which we took a decision to make this massive investment in, was done because we wanted to support the existing residents, communities, and commerce. Because think about it, if we had moved the road internally, then essentially what would happen is that the communities that exist along this pathway would eventually die off, as the traffic that is passing through would choose to use the better road and not use this road. What we want to do is to encourage the development of the area. And so we took a decision to keep the existing alignment and to repair it. But that adds great complications. It adds complications as it relates to the inconvenience of the people who live in the area and have to use the road while the road is being repaired. Then there is a complication of building on areas that are not the best areas to put the infrastructure. When these roads were being considered and built hundreds of years ago, there was no consideration about climate change. There was no consideration about the heavy usage and the kinds of trucks that would be using the road. Now we have to think about those things. And the truth is, this alignment is not the best alignment. Some of these areas cannot be defended. No matter how many millions of dollars you invest in seawalls and other protection, you know, heavy category 5 storm could easily just erode and destroy that. We have seen that happen in Montego Bay, where we had serious wind that just totally destroyed the seawall and other protections that were there. So in the long term, and not too far away actually, the government will be building another road, but more inland. And the purpose of that is to create new communities along those roads. So we have actually started with the the development and the identification of lands, the acquisition of lands for the Port Antonio bypass. So we're going to do the Port Antonio bypass, and then over time connect that bypass with a road that is more inland that will lead us now to be connected to the section from Harborview to Yalas. So we'll still have this road, it will still be in good condition, but over time the intention is to move commerce and residents and other activities more inland, and then have this road now as a more scenic touristic route that if it is impacted by weather, the loss is not so great. So that's a long-term strategic thinking, and I hope that the public understands that, you know, these things do happen in the construction. We have no control over weather events, and this particular failure of the road is not due to any fault of the contractor or materials or oversight. This part is primarily because of the effects of Hurricane Beryl.
Mr. Premier, originally the design for this road was really inland, and you were trying to explain why you came.
Yeah, so originally, the thought by previous administration was that it would be a toll road. The idea was to construct a toll road going from, my understanding, going from Harborview going all the way around. That was the original thought. My administration changed that, and we thought it was best to extend. So we split the package in two, and we extend the east-west highway, which is now why you have this lovely road from Bay Pen to Williamsfield, and then invest in improving the existing alignment and make the investment in the communities that exist here. So consider, if we had put a road in the hills, all the communities along here. In other words, if we did do the investment here, all the communities, all the businesses, all the little towns, all of them would just die off. Because that's the impact of roads. So we're very careful. The idea is not to use the road to disenfranchise the existing residents and businesses and so forth. It's to improve it, it's to develop an economy. And then over time, people can make the decision that I want to relocate from here to go somewhere better. But if you just move the road, people wouldn't have the wherewithal, the means, they would be able to benefit from the investment. So it's a more thoughtful decision making.
Come from?
My name is Miss Greenleaf. I'm from Cedar Valley. Cedar Valley Division.
Okay. You know, we're here, the Prime Minister is touring the area because some of the road work wasn't done properly. How you feel about that?
Well, we're glad for the road, but the contractor them don't interact with the community who live in the community. And if you say a thing wrong and that tell them, they don't listen to you. Because in Cedar Valley, we are a water here. And the drain them, they don't use the whole drain them. They only make the sidewalk. And below the Cedar Valley Primary School, there are 3 culverts, and the 3 are black. They don't open them. And when the rain fall the other day, the whole of the water take the road. The asphalt right now, if you go up there, you can see it a pulp.
So sorry guys, I don't want to interview here. I don't want to interview. 2 seconds here. Yeah, so
you can see where the asphalt, it start to rise. And from the beginning, we tell them that the asphalt is too thin. And them said no. They don't listen, the contractor don't listen to the people that live in the community.
How important do you think it is that they have meetings with them? Because you guys know what are some of the areas and
that is the thing. The first they have the first when the MP come with them at the school, they said they would have meeting every 3 months. And the one meeting until was over 2 years, no other meeting, they don't come and keep with the community. Right. So in a daily basis, they on the road and you talk, them don't listen to the community people. And the road don't do good. for the road because going to Morant Bay, it is us.
We're again on South Coast Highway Improvement Project on what we call Package 6. This one is from Arcadia to Amity Wheelersfield, or we call commonly known as Amity Hall. In this section of the road where we're putting in, as you can see here just behind you, Prime Minister, water lines as well as embankment works and so on. We drainage infrastructure as well is new here. So we are moving ahead with this section of the package. The contractor is hoping to finish everything on Tranche 3 by the end of December. Hopefully in the new year. We don't want to disrupt Christmas too much. So the work is progressing steadily on this side of the corridor.
Very good.
Manager.
The South Coast Road Improvement Project is arguably the largest road infrastructure project undertaken by the government of Jamaica. The project is divided into two. Part one deals with the extension of the East-West Highway from Maypen to Williamsfield, and that is complete. It's a wonderful piece of infrastructure. Jamaica is the better for it. The second part of the project is 147 kilometers of roadway starting from Harborview and ending up all the way into Port Antonio. We have done long roadways before. We have done the North-South Highway, but that was about 100 kilometers, if that much. But it has never been the case that we have done that extent of infrastructure on existing roadways. And I think that point needs to be stressed to the Jamaican public. It's an entirely different level of work when you're building road infrastructure on a greenfield, meaning lands that are virgin territory. Because when you're building on a greenfield, on greenfield lands, you can choose the areas that you're going to build on. So you can choose to build on areas that will economize on the costs that you will have to incur. You don't have to contend with persons using the road while it is being built, so the inconvenience factor is less. And you can work at any hour you want. You can work at night, you can work at day, you can choose. What we have decided to do on this part of the South Coast Road Improvement Project is to work on the existing corridor. The existing corridor has several communities, town centers, businesses, residents that are immediately in the curtilage of the road. And that adds great complexity. For one, you have to maintain access to the infrastructure. So people have to be able to use the infrastructure while you're building. Secondly, you have to keep the utilities going while you're building. You have to keep water going. You have to keep the internet and the electricity going. So it adds multiple degrees of complexity to the project. And then there is the inconvenience factor, the dust nuisance and the noise nuisance and the disruption of people's business and routines. So the challenge for the government is to build the road, which is not just putting on asphalt. Now, when we say we're building a road, we are putting in water mains, and not just small water mains, serious water mains. As you can see here, we're putting in water mains that are going to be connecting water supply from Harborview going all the way back to Port Antonio. And it is not just the water main. We are putting in fiber optic cables. All the telephone, all the electrical wires and electrical lines, those are being upgraded. So it is an entire infrastructure investment. It is the utilities, it is the roadway, but for this area, and most important, it is the drainage. So we have put in massive drains and culverts, and in addition to that, retaining walls and seawalls. So I'm saying all of this for the public to appreciate the magnitude of work that is happening here. And they're all being done almost simultaneously, all at once. So that requires even greater supervision than we have had before. The truth is that Jamaica simply does not have enough engineers to manage the level of infrastructure work that we're doing. And this is something that the government is paying close attention to. So let's think about it. We have the South Coast Road Improvement Project, 147 kilometers of road work being done. And that has to be supervised by Stanley engineers. They are the consulting engineer. Then we have the Montego Bay Perimeter Project, another massive project going on. That requires another set of engineering supervision. And then in a few months, we're going to have the Spark program coming. Jamaica has never had this level of infrastructure investment happening all at once. So I do hear the cries of the residents who live in this area who are inconvenienced that, you know, a pothole has occurred here or there's a breakaway. And I wish to assure the public that this project is not yet finished. This project is still under construction. It is still under a construction contract. And therefore, if there are any defects, if there are any failures, they must be corrected under the construction period. This project is also under a 2-year defects liability warranty. So even if defects occur in 2 years, the responsible contractor has to make good on the repairs. This is an entirely new framework for the delivery of public infrastructure. This doesn't say that the government isn't doing its best to ensure quality at first go. And that is why we have supervising engineers who are there to oversee the work of the contractor and advise NWA if there are failures or what needs to be done. And in fact, they are there in the design end of the work to make sure that what is designed can withstand the elements and any eventualities. So I want to assure the public that this is a solid project, that the engineering, the quality control, and the management is in place. But I also want the public and the narrative in the public domain to consider, one, that this project is very complex because we have decided to maintain the original alignment and deal with all the challenges of use while under construction, maintenance of service while under construction, access and the inconvenience, but also having to deal with a less optimal route. And I want to spend a little bit of time saying what we mean by a less optimal route. These long established routes have become less optimal over time because, one, the climate change issues, the weather variability, and the frequent weather events which affect them. Secondly, the change in the nature of usage. You know, 30 years ago, these roads were not used to carry construction aggregate. And you see more trucks carrying heavy loads on these roads. So those roads were never designed for it. And the truth is, these would not have been the best alignment if we were to redo them. So they are less optimal because of that. But you cannot dispense with them because over the years that the centuries, essentially, many of these pathways have been established, communities have developed and sprung up around them. Businesses have sprung up around them. So you have to be very careful when you move road alignments. We have seen that, of course, happening when we opened the new leg of the East-West Highway, and we saw communities saying, hey, my business has gone down totally because of the change in alignment. So we're very careful. If we had changed this alignment, all the communities along here, all the businesses along this road would eventually wither away and die. So we decided to make the investments in the community to allow the community to benefit from having better infrastructure. Eventually, over time, as we look to climate-proof our infrastructure, new roadways will be built. And I'm saying this now, that this is not going to be the final investment in St. Thomas. In fact, we have already announced the development of the Port Antonio bypass. And the Port Antonio bypass will be continued right throughout Portland and St. Thomas and connect into the 14 kilometers from Harborview to Yala. So that's the kind of medium term to long term plan. So these routes will still be there. The communities around them, we still expect them to exist, but they will become more scenic routes. They will be part of the kind of development of a tourism corridor, and they won't necessarily be, as they are now, essential and critical for the connectivity around the island. So this is just to give the public a general understanding of what is happening on the South Coast Road Improvement Project. The project has lasted much longer than we had expected, and that is as a result of COVID, which really delayed our supply chains. We were not able to get the pipelines in, and that affected the completion of the project. And then the original project did not contemplate putting in pipelines, internet, and changing of the electricity infrastructure. So with all of those new additions, it has extended the time of the project. So very important, the project is still under construction. Any faults that have happened, it is within the period of time that it can be corrected. And I wish, and I'm hopeful, that persons will not seek to make political statements on these issues. These are technical issues and should be addressed as technical issues. And the public has the assurance. If there are weaknesses, if there are failures, we are on top of it and we will correct it at no cost to the public purse.
Any timeline for completion?
I'll turn over to the technical people.
The proposal is that by March of 2025, we should be completed with the packages in this area. Be aware though that while we are expecting a March completion timeline, the engineers and the NWA and the government will be paying very close attention to the road to pick up any defects that may occur. So while we complete in March, they will continue to be monitoring over time to fix whatever defects or any flaws that we see emerging on the road. You, Jamila, you had a question about?
I have a question about the possibility of us returning to a scale type system. I know there was one out by Harborview, that was a while back, but the thing is, motorists out at Seaport, the road is in a deteriorated condition. It's just bad as how it's by Comfort right there. Government considering putting back the scales at strategic places so that we don't have trucks overloading the aggregate area. We understand quarries are around, but how do we ensure that we keep the roads just as the same way with the construction?
But just to be clear, this project is not complete. The thinking is that at the completion of the project, there will be weighing areas at strategic locations. And so as soon as we are at completion, you will start to see investments in scales. But because the road,
even at the quarries,
because the road's just not yet complete. So one of the issues that you face with this project is that we have to design the road for the expected usage. So you're getting a road that is going to be designed in particular areas to carry the load that it is now carrying. Bear in mind, however, that there is scarcely any road that you can design for overweight trucks that improperly use the road. And that is why we're going to put in the scale. Now, once the road is complete, and you can have the legal definition, because if you are weighed and found wanting, then under law, certain penalties will chip in. And that is why you have to have the road complete so you can have the established areas and the established penalties. So let's complete the road. We will know what the design limits are for the road and the weight limit. And then if that is breached, then we can effect penalties under law. And that's why I'm saying when we design the road, we are designing it in mind for a certain weight and for us to be able to put in the scales to penalize persons who breach those road limits.
I have one more question. Another road. We're out here. As it relates to consultation, what extent are the contractors obligated to have meetings on a regular basis, on a quarterly basis, monthly basis? Because the reports that we keep on getting is that the engineers or whoever, they're not listening to us. Yes, we understand the residents aren't engineers, but living in the area for years, and they understand where some of the problems are. Are there meetings being held with the community on a regular basis?
I'll ask Varden to answer that.
We have had meetings with the community, especially when we were starting up this particular tranche, these 5 packages here. We came out and we had meetings. We hear the concerns, we brief the communities as to what is happening, and we have also provided the communication line. So anyone has any concerns, the National Works Agency can be contacted. The numbers are there and we can provide it again. Our consultants are on site with their section engineers and personnel who are available to hear the grouse. You will always, however, find that there is that clash between, as Prime Minister said, doing the construction within what we call a brownfield area, where people live and have to exist and continue to move around. There will always be that conflict because persons probably feel their driveway may be cut off. They are wondering who should they talk to. It's reasonable concern. What we want to reiterate is that the Works Agency is available. If we are not there, you can contact us. Our telephone numbers are well available. Or if not, then our consultants are available. So anybody has any concerns, we are available and we will come and address it. Okay?
Final question. You mentioned about weight. Islington Bridge.
No, man. Let's
limit at 10 ton.
Let's keep it. I couldn't tell you about Islington Bridge right now. I would have to go and read. Unless any of the...
We know that there are restrictions on a number of bridges island-wide. You can appreciate that we put the weight limit as advisory to persons, but we can't have scales and policing all the locations at all the time. So there is some inherent trust that has to be there that persons have to understand and responsibility. I'm just saying if we have 50 bridges across the island out of the 860 that the NAA manages, if let's say 50 bridges have weight restrictions, you can appreciate that we can't have 50 scales at all the locations and have police personnel standing there to get persons to comply. So I'm just saying that what we have to do is put the notices, advise the public, and try to enforce as much as is possible. But there are weight restrictions and persons are expected to follow those. Just like we have speed limit for their own safety. Just like we have speed limit, the police can't be at all the locations to police it. Citizens have to understand that we are a law-abiding country. If you see weight limit, don't go over there with twice the weight limit. Abide by the weight limit. That's what it is.
Thank you. So, look, we can't have too many consultations. I think we have to, as much as possible, be open and accessible to the public. This is new to this area, this kind of construction work. And the citizen engineer, the member of the public that has some basic understanding by virtue of their experience about issues, for example, of water courses, waterways, areas that flood over time. This is very important for the technical persons to have that kind of knowledge from the community.
Yep.
And we should facilitate that as much as possible so that gets integrated into the engineering solutions that are proposed. So we will continue to be open and available. Citizens are going to be disgruntled because the responses may not come on as timely a fashion. But I think we have gone through the worst. I think the public would have appreciate the work that they are seeing, but they should understand that the work is not complete. We are still in construction phase, and any defects that occur will be addressed.
Thank you very much.